All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. We are going to be covering everything business and business related. We're going to do some quick intros and then we'll really kind of just get right into it. So, Pat, why don't we go ahead and start off with you first? Introduce yourself, tell us about your business or businesses that you have going on, and then we'll just go from there.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Patrick Barbour. Welcome everybody to the podcast. Excited to be doing this with my boy Vince. And so a little bit about me. My background is actually in engineering and project management in the oil and gas industry. But back in 2017, I decided to leave that career and embark on a journey of entrepreneurship, and entered that space through the realm of staffing and recruiting. I launched my own staffing business back in 2017, and ultimately evolved that into a direct hire and staffing business, which I currently run now. Seven-figure business, and then through that was able to invest in other businesses as well in the transportation space, and then also been able to do some real estate investing as well as some online coaching that's related to recruiting as well. So yeah, excited to get on here and cuss and discuss all things business and learn stuff and meet new people and all that good stuff.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Cool. All right. So yeah, and my name is Vincent Pennix. I am and the owner and founder of Interview Staffing, a staffing and recruiting agency. Background mostly in sales, but I got into the entrepreneur space back in 2020, like it pretty much during and kind of towards the end of COVID, sitting at home and just was like, hey, I got a lot of time. Let's get a business started. And since then it's kind of just blown up from there. And that's what I do full time now and allows me to work remote and the lifestyle that I want to have. And there's always, I think in entrepreneurship, one of the things we'll probably cover in this podcast, there's always ups and downs going on, but lessons learned every single day. And I love it so far. And I think it's definitely for me. And I see myself doing this for a long time. And I have great mentors like Patrick and some other people along the way that have helped me out. And look forward to learning and discussing and always growing more. So
Hell yeah.
yeah,
Hell yeah.
cool.
Awesome.
Cool. So listen, one of the first things that I wanted to do to kind of go ahead and get this started off is, I feel like goals are always important. So like, if we're going to do this podcast, for example, let's have our own goal to kind of start off. So I was doing some research and I found a stat that I wanted to share, just kind of with anybody that's listening and for ourselves as well to hold ourselves accountable is
Sure.
that, so 90% of podcasts don't get past podcast 3 or
Mm.
past episode 3. And so that's 1.8 million people who quit. Out of that 200,000 left, 90% of those will quit after 20 episodes. And that's another 180,000 people gone. And then to be in the top 1% of podcasts in the world, you only need to publish 21 episodes of your podcast,
Really?
which is wild. Yeah, exactly. So that being said, our first goal, first and foremost, should just be short-term goal, but let's make it to episode 21. And no matter what happens between, everything else that we have going on, we're gonna get to that goal number 21, and then we'll adjust and kind of like, maybe set a new goal from there and everything. But
Love it. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it sounds very achievable, but I don't know. This is number one. So maybe we'll learn here pretty soon why people don't make it to 21 or lower. But yeah, I'm in.
you,
Let's do it.
I think I've actually like kind of given that some thought, and I think it's very similar to when people kind of start their business. It's like you see all the opportunity and and what's out there and what you're able to do, and I think people kind of apply this podcast as well as like you're like, I'm going to start this podcast and get millions of followers. I'm going to be Joe Rogan, and like next year or whatever, and like and then you let it launch and who knows what's going to happen with ours, but like 20 people watch it or something, and you're just
Yeah.
like, and you can't let that get discouraged. I think the biggest thing, we'll learn from, the way we'll handle this podcast. Sorry, my camera's come down out here. The way we'll handle this podcast in the similar way to, how you handle your business is you just got to keep pushing no matter like really what the results are. And so, that's, and at the end of the day, I think that, you and I were discussing this before we jumped on here. The biggest thing that we want to get out of this is just be able to also learn from other people and network and grow. And the things that happen naturally along the way are going to be, just all cake on top, on icing on top of the cake. Let's put it like that. So,
No doubt. No doubt.
Cool.
I'm excited. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Goal number one set. Love it. 21.
Goal,
All right. Let's
goal
do
number
it.
one set for the podcast. Now, I mean, I don't know if you want to try to set. I hadn't even thought about this, but if you want to try to set a time frame, I mean, I don't know what that would even look like. If we did one a week, where would that land
Yeah.
us at? Probably about 4 months from now. Would that be 4 or 5 months from now?
Ish.
So
About 5. Yeah.
yeah,
So
November, December.
26. Yeah. Yeah. 26 weeks would be half a year. So
So
yeah.
by around March, we should have hit that goal.
Let's do
If
it.
we don't
Let's say
do
end of
more,
March.
yes,
Yeah.
let's say into March, mid-March. Let's
Okay.
say that we should have hit that goal by then. And then I
like
want to put
it.
this on the podcast so everybody hears that we're saying this.
That's right. All right. Yeah.
Hold
Moment of
ourselves
accountability.
accountable.
All
Yeah,
three
but-
people, all three of you that are watching this.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Well-
and then, yeah, maybe we hate it by then, and we're like, okay, that was fun, Vince. But or maybe
think
we're like, yeah.
If we hate it, we're doing it wrong, man. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be
Agreed.
something that's like, we just enjoy it. So,
Agreed.
cool. All right, man. Well, listen. So mid-March, hit number 21, and we'll just keep going from there. So actually, that kind of transitions me into the first thing that I wanted to talk about. So, I mean, you've had a lot of success. You started several businesses and everything like that. So I really want to kind of go with you first. When you set goals, here's one thing that at least I personally like struggle with in the past is like sometimes you make goals too small and then you feel like you could have done a lot more. And then I don't know if you're familiar with like Grant Cardone and stuff. He's always talking about like whatever your goals are, you need to 10x it too. And I'm like, I agree with that. But then at the same time, if you're like, if you made, for example, let's say you made like just throwing out a random number, like let's say somebody made $70,000 last year and they're like, okay, I want to make $40 billion next year. Like, okay, maybe that's just like, you know what I mean? I know that you should have really big goals, but also, so I guess when you set goals, like how do you kind of come to a number of what your goal is going to be? And do you kind of have one end goal or do you kind of have like short goals along the way? Like how exactly do you usually go about doing that?
It's a good question. And I personally start with the end in mind and then reverse engineer from there. And so I do have one ultimate goal in my life that really everything else that I do kind of feeds to that vision and to that goal that I have. And so, and I've had this since I was a kid. And I think everybody's different and, what they prioritize and what they want out of this thing. But from as early on as I can remember, I have always wanted to be a wealthy individual. I've always wanted to have money, and because of all the things that come along with that, the toys, the travel, the experiences, the stuff, the lifestyle, all of that. And so that has always been a major, major goal that I've personally had. And, growing up, I think that everybody could probably relate to this, but growing up, we were taught and told that, hey, in order to get that, you needed to do good in school and go to a good university and go get a really good job and then work your ass off and climb the corporate ladder and all of that. And so I did all of those things thinking that it would deliver that. But about 10, 11 years into my career, I realized that was actually BS, that wasn't going to deliver the dream of owning it. And this sounds crazy, but I have a dream. I want a private jet. I want to have a yacht. I want to do those things and have that stuff and live that lifestyle, have those experiences, because I personally believe that we're here once, and I want to make it count. And so, any goal that I set, anything that I set out to do ultimately has to fit and drive towards that ultimate finish line for me, which is kind of, that pinnacle of wealth, but also the lifestyle that comes with it. I don't want to be working my butt off, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I do that. I did that when I launched my businesses, and anytime I really dive into something new, I will do that out of the gate. But very quickly, my goal is always to stabilize and then leverage out, right? Get people to kind of step in and execute something that is working so that I can get my time back and get back to drinking margaritas on the beach and doing all the other stuff that I like to do. I like starting with the end in mind and then reverse engineering from that. But as long as it's driving and fits into that bucket, then that's kind of the starting point for me. And then once I kind of check that box and say, okay, yes, this will deliver the lifestyle, the wealth, et cetera, that I'm seeking, then I start putting together a plan and a strategy of how I can actually get from where I'm at today to whatever that thing is that I'm trying to reach. And so I see this a lot now. Now that I'm kind of in acquisition mode, if you will.
Yeah.
I look at opportunities constantly. I've constantly had my ear to the street and, looking at different things. And so, especially when you're talking about acquiring businesses and this sort of thing, there are a lot of businesses out there that can make you a lot of money, but not all of them will fit into the bucket that I've created for myself. Whoops, there's a microphone there. Not all of them will fit into a bucket that I've created for myself. And so, like, for example, like buying a manufacturing company, like you can make damn good money. You can make millions of dollars owning a manufacturing company, but you're also probably going to work about 80 to 100 hours a week doing that. And that's not, and I don't want to show up to the office. I like working remote. I'm currently in Brazil. And so I like that style of living. And so, yeah, that's really where it all starts. Me personally, I'm a very confident person in my ability. And so if the idea or the goal that I'm setting at least checks that initial box of, is this going to fit my end goal, then I usually have a lot of confidence in being able to put together a game plan, a roadmap to begin executing to connect the dots of today to whatever that is. But that's where it always starts with me. How about you? What about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very similar. You kind of have like the, the end goal in mind, obviously, but I think it's like lining those things up like in place on the way to get there. Kind of like, I guess the best like analogy in a way that I'm just thinking of off the top of my head is like, it's like you have the top of the stairs and you have to have the stairs on the way to kind of like get up there, that you have to take each step to be able to kind of get to the end goal of like where you want to be. Right. And so
Right.
I think it's about putting the right steps in place in order for you to kind of get to the top of the stairs, the ladder, whatever in this metaphor. But that's one thing that like, okay, I actually have a question for you, and sorry, I'm going to put this back on you real quick, but I'm kind of curious. But like, when you're deciding on, like, I guess you kind of mentioned like how you make a decision between the things that are going to kind of get you there, but how do you like ultimately like decide like for example, okay, so we have the end goal of you wanting to be wealthy and everything, right? But like what was your first business?
Staffing business.
It was the staffing business.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose that?
Yeah, I chose that because in my role at the time, I was a project manager, and we were using industrial staffing companies to help us execute capital projects that we were running for our clients, and worked with a number of different industrial staffing companies for welders and fitters, a lot of skilled craft labor, welders, fitters, electricians, this sort of thing. And being the decision maker on that and vetting these companies, working with them hand in hand, and also seeing kind of the commercial side, the finances of it, what we were paying them, and having a sense for what the actual labor was making, and doing some hard math and seeing the opportunity, I quickly thought, man, I could do this and probably better than them. And so that thought actually hit me in 2015, about 2 years before I decided to quit my job and take the plunge and start the business. And I basically mentally masturbated over the thought of doing that for about 2 years straight before pulling the trigger and kind of working the ins and outs and all of that. But yeah, anytime that I'm like actually kind of like, okay, I want to quit my job, I want to start a business. I've talked about this before in other circles, but that always presents itself in real life as you're going through it as risk. You're assessing risk and the risk that you're going to take and the reward and all of that, not to be cliche. But I say that because I talk to a lot of people now, folks that I went to school with or have known in other circles, and they're like, man, you've got a really awesome eye for spotting opportunities. And I always kind of laugh because it doesn't feel like that whenever I'm actually going through it, when I'm in the shit, if you will.
Yeah.
And you're up against it. It's not like, wow, look at this awesome opportunity. I mean, you do recognize that the potential for an opportunity is there, but you don't know that for sure until you take that step and you actually do the thing and then succeed in doing that. Then like, man, Patrick capitalized on that opportunity. But when you're up against it and you're assessing it, it's an assessment of risk, right?
Mm,
And so the outweighing the risk versus reward, the likelihood that you're actually going to be able to go and do that, formulating a high level plan, at least if not even something more granular and actionable, and saying, okay, like, I think I have this fairly mapped out. There's probably some things that I'm not aware of, but I've done enough due diligence here to say, yeah, I think I can do this and it's going to be worth it. And then you go and do it. And then it's just kind of like, okay, either it happens and it works out and it's a great opportunity, or you made a mistake. Right. And so that's the other side of that coin that people forget, where they're like, hey, so and so lost their ass in crypto. Well, they were assessing risk. They took the risk and it didn't work out. So had it worked out, you would have said, man, what a great opportunity that you saw getting into crypto. But if they hung on and lost their butt, then like, oops, that was a bad read. You made a mistake. You took a gamble and it didn't work out. So yeah.
have you, and I mean, no, I'm not asking anything too personal with this. Have you had any that you've tried that you haven't really worked out yet?
Yeah. So I've been pretty open about this on another podcast, but my staffing business, my first year, I almost went bankrupt. And so I obviously learned some very valuable lessons, and it ended up working out. But there was a long stretch of time there during that year that it did not look good. It looked like it was I was gonna basically drain my personal savings and go back to zero and have to go back into the workforce and try to get a new job. And so yeah, that was a moment. It wasn't a total L. I ended up learning a lot and implementing the lessons that I learned, and it very quickly corrected my trajectory with that business. But yeah, in terms of other things that I've taken on that have not
So,
worked
wait,
out.
wait, hold on. Sorry, before you move on, there's a lot to that because that's important for people to know, especially if they're starting business. Because a lot of times, either it seems like it's going to happen or that is happening. So I guess like just before you move on, real quick, like when you were in that point and you were felt like you were about to go under and it was either going to go to zero or whatever else, what made you stay in it as opposed to just giving up and moving on?
I had an unshakable belief that what I was doing, if I could figure it out, it would work and change my life forever.
Yeah.
And even in the face of impending doom, I still hung on to that. I still knew, like, God damn, if I could just if I could just do this and that and get this to work, the numbers make sense. The math, like the demand is there. I see like everything is there. I just need to figure out how to put it together. And at the time, I was okay with being in a world of pain. I kind of expected that. I had two mentors in my professional career who really kind of took me under their wing as a young professional and groomed me into becoming a manager and a leader within an organization.
Mm-hmm.
Cody Wilson and Steve Taylor, shout out to those guys. But they both, and we all work together, so they know each other. But they would always tell me, "Hey, listen, like whenever you're setting up a new department or executing a new strategy or putting a team together, you can do all the planning you want. You can line it all out. You can think you have it all figured out, but you have to have your chin strap on because you can bet your bottom dollar that it's probably going to be extremely turbulent. You're going to have things not go your way. You're going to have, what you thought was going to work not work and have to pivot. You're going to have people working against you. You're going to have disappointments. And so the best way to overcome that is to expect it to happen so that when it does happen, you're not surprised and all the wind is taken out of your sails and you're deflated and you lose motivation. And so that has carried me through. And I mentor people and I share that with them to this day. And so that's the mindset that I had that kind of carries me through those moments, because without that, I knew it was going to suck. I didn't know it was going to suck to the degree that it did at the time. But knowing that, being prepared for challenges and just not giving up and believing in what I was doing and that it would work was what ultimately carried me through, for sure.
And that's one thing I always tell people when they first like get into this or getting into starting like any business too. It's just like a big point that you mentioned there was like having like a mentor, having like other people, because like entrepreneurship, like well, probably this could be a whole podcast in itself. It could be a lonely journey, man. Like, and if you're just going through all this alone, like, and especially going through the highs and the low, I mean, really the lows, like, and you don't have anybody else that's like kind of been through it too, like, it makes it
You are
really,
alone.
really
No,
tough.
you are
Yeah.
completely, if you're
Yeah.
stepping out into entrepreneurship, you are completely alone.
Yep.
Like, make no mistake about it, unless you have a partner, which depending on the situation could add a wrinkle or dynamic that makes it even more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But no doubt about it, you are on an island by yourself. Don't expect your parents to be on board. Like, they might to your face like, "Oh, that's great, honey," but nobody believes in you. Everybody is kind of like
Yep.
kind of doing one of these numbers, a little bit of an eye roll, probably. You're by yourself. Don't look for any pats on the back. Like, you're going to war for yourself, and it's just you. All the fanfare comes after you made it, right? And after you've
Yeah.
seen success and like proven everybody wrong. But yeah, man, it's just you. It's just you.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna. Sorry, my camera's cutting
Whoa,
out.
where'd you
I'm,
go? You
I'm
just
still
like
here.
disappeared.
Still
That was
here.
like a Harry
I
Potter
know.
move. You just
I
disappeared
know.
into that brick wall there.
um, and nobody's gonna say sorry while I'm working out some technical difficulties,
You're
but
good.
yeah, nobody's gonna save you either, too. I mean, that's a really big thing, is like, basically you gotta kind of like figure that out. And here we go, I'm back. And when you're going through these things, you have to also like believe in yourself beyond other people just believing in you. You have to really kind of push it through. And nobody's gonna like, I know this this quote's going all over the internet lately, but it's like nobody's gonna wake you up out of bed and do it for you. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, you really do
Right.
have to kind of do it yourself. So actually, question, like, also related to that, when you were at that low point and you were picking yourself back up and out of it, I guess we could say again, what kind of changed? Like, what was it? I know you believed in yourself. I know that you knew that it was there, but what kind of caused that to start to turn around?
Action, just taking action and assessing the situation. Um, Basically, what got me out of it was I took a step back and I evaluated the action that I had taken leading up to those moments, and really kind of understanding, okay, at what point did things go wrong? And then do a root cause analysis as to what caused that. Like, why did that not work? And then with that piece of information, okay, what can I do moving forward to correct and deliver a different result? Which is a very valuable skill to have. And so, for those of you that are like, how do you do a root cause analysis? There's a technique called the five whys. Very, very simple. They teach this in Lean Six Sigma and project management and all of that. Very, very simple process. You basically continue to ask why about a certain situation until you get to the root cause that is ultimately fixing that. One thing that most folks, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but we're here, so why not?
It's good.
The problems that you are experiencing are usually symptoms of a much greater problem that is happening underneath. And what most people struggle with is they start fixing the symptoms, they start trying to treat the symptoms and fix the symptoms, and they think they got it solved, but then boom, like they continue to have the same issues, right? And that's because there's something underneath that needs to be corrected in order for real change to happen. And so going through that process during that situation helped me kind of really kind of see the whole field and what my missteps probably were. And even at the time when I was trying to create what I call a corrective action, and so in other industries they actually use that in the quality world, creating a corrective action plan essentially of what I'm going to do different to deliver a different result. I didn't know if it was going to work, but I knew it was going to be different and I had a shot. And so just having that, and then being willing to continue to wake up and step through the door every day and take the action, even though it sucked and there was nothing good going on, and that sort of thing is everything.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's good. And so I guess I don't know how specific you want to get as far as like what were the actions that you realized is that like you needed to change. So you did this evaluation, but what were those pain points that you kind of noticed within yourself? Because this might help somebody else in their business, whether they're in recruiting or not. But like, what were some of the things? Because I know things I've messed up on. What were the things that I know you mentioned? Action is one thing, right? But like, what do you mean by that? Like, like, is it
Well,
making
it's
more?
going to be
Yeah, go ahead.
it's it's going to be, usually it's going to depend on the situation, right? There's always
Sure.
nuance to whatever's going on. At the time, one of the biggest mistakes that I had made in starting my business was I was just basically doing business with anybody that would do business with me,
Mm,
because I was a startup and I didn't have a proper due diligence process in place to evaluate the clients, the partners that I was going to take on.
mm,
Which was a major mistake, especially in the staffing business, because in staffing, there's a lot of risk in staffing because you are fronting a lot of money for insurances, for payroll, for the temp workers that you're putting out there, this sort of thing. And so, that is a significant investment that you're making out that, assuming you have a legitimate and solvent partner that, obviously it can be profitable, but if you happen to do that and engage in that with someone who's not solvent and not going to pay their bills, well, all of a sudden you've front loaded, in my case, six figures for a project to, manpower a project that is being run when the client doesn't have the money to pay your invoice. And so
mm.
that was the situation that I found myself in. That was a little bit more obvious to step through, but there are other things. There was a situation earlier this year that we both have gone through together, in our own respective recruiting businesses with VAs. This is a great example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, one of the ways that you can scale a recruiting business once you have lead flow and client acquisition dialed in is through onboarding recruiter VAs, offshore VAs from other countries. And
Virtual
so
assistants for the record.
virtual assistants, thank
Yeah.
you. And so that was a strategy that worked for a few years. For me personally, Vince saw some success as well as others, but the dynamic of that, there's some nuance that has changed over the last year and a half, I would say, that have made that a different environment and not the same. It's more challenging to leverage that strategy specifically to deliver the results in our recruiting business that we're expecting, to actually give us the capacity and bandwidth to bill more and make more money. And so, I went through this, and I still see other people that I mentor going through this, where those dynamics have changed to the point where that strategy is completely altered and shifted, but it's shifted to the point where the constraint that you were trying to solve for in your business, which is recruiting bandwidth, is still limited by bringing that person on, which is a
Mm,
problem. It's a problem because just because you plug them in, they solve half of the equation, but the constraint that you needed to solve for and remove is still present. And therefore, your business doesn't grow the way that you expect it to grow. Really, all you've done is you've increased your cost.
mm,
And so that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it is the time that you take, because one of the challenges with this strategy is finding the right person. That has become increasingly more difficult in the offshore space for what we do. And so the time that you're burning and getting someone in and then realizing they don't work out and then having to replace them and so on and so forth, like all of that time and energy is being diverted from other things that could also make you profitable. And so, we went through a year of like, okay, onboarding strategies and different sourcing pools and how we screen folks and da 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 da. So if you were to go through the 5 whys process, you realize that the root cause is the strategy itself. It's not going, it can augment your operation, but it's ultimately not going to completely remove the capacity constraint that you have in the delivery side of your business. And so the hard reality is like, man, I need to not cheap out on this, and I need to hire someone legit. And that may require me to spend a little extra up front and get someone onshore that has, proven and has experience and all that. It's not the easy, like, oh, cool, $1,000 a month full blown resource, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter unless it removes the constraint. And so that's a great example of something recently that I've gone through for that. So.
And that, I mean, that's a good example. That doesn't have to just want to be clear, to anybody that's maybe listening that isn't in recruiting. That can apply just to any business in general, as far as like just the value of good employees. And like we talk about this all the time because we're in recruiting, but it generally is true. Is just like sometimes it's worth it to pay that person $10,000, $20,000 more a year, whatever it's going to be for that role, if they can legitimately get it done and do it right, as opposed to saving some money but really causing yourself way more hassle down the road.
Another way of saying that is sometimes it's more expensive to go the cheap route.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's something. It's something that, especially when you're starting a bit, like when you're a larger business, you still are always trying to, like, keep costs low. But like, especially when you're starting a business, because each person that you bring on or each mistake is felt so much more. That
Right.
I understand that can be difficult, but it's just like you really got to weigh that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it also depends on where your finances are too,
No
and
doubt.
what you can afford and what you can bring on. So okay, so you got out of the staffing thing. You kind of were able to the staffing thing, meaning like that the situation that you were in, you were able to kind of
Right.
grow and scale that out. I know long term, and you were eventually able to kind of grow that out to it's now a 7-figure business, which is awesome, man. We'll get more into that maybe on like a different podcast.
Sure.
What I want to kind of like ask you about though is what was the second business that you started, and why did you just choose that one specifically though?
Second business I acquired, which is a FedEx route. For those that don't know, the FedEx trucks that you see running around in your neighborhood, those are actually privately owned through contractors, and contracted through FedEx, and you can acquire those. And so, after I was able to stack significant cash through our staffing and recruiting business, my next step, ultimately feeding to my goal of being wealthy and having this awesome lifestyle, was acquiring another business that would further diversify my income, and but also fit the bucket of the lifestyle that I'm living, something that I can run remotely with not a huge lift every week in terms of time, requirement and this sort of thing. And so, I frequent websites like BizBuySell and BizQuest and this sort of thing, and look at different businesses that are on the market and kind of evaluate and assess, the risk and the opportunity and, kind of what we've talked about. And the FedEx model really kind of fit that. It was something that really appealed to me because it could be run remote. If you bought the right one with management in place, the time requirement wasn't going to be, substantial. The cash flow, the profitability is something that's already built in. So from day one, that's happening. And so it just checked all of those boxes for me. And the diversification from a market standpoint, I really loved. Obviously, it's a logistics business, but what I really, really loved about it is that it's kind of a backdoor play on the e-commerce industry, without,
Yep.
having to open up an FBA, an Amazon FBA or any of that kind of crap, which has never really appealed to me. And so I really love that. If you someone who believes that people are going to continue to buy stuff online and have it delivered to them, then this is a good space, which I do.
Yeah.
I believe that's going to continue to be a thing. Then, I felt really good about the risk I was taking, in doing that. And so, yeah, we bought our first one in 2021 and bought another one last year. And going to continue to probably add to that portfolio as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, because once you've kind of breaking into that, space and kind of gotten one, I guess the other ones are just, what makes sense
Yeah, I mean, proof of
financially.
concept is everything, right?
Yeah.
Because proof of concept is certainty, and so once you have certainty, you feel totally emboldened, and empowered to go and pull the trigger. It becomes much easier to do that. So, yeah,
Do you actually like buy the trucks and everything, or like how exactly does that work?
yeah. So basically, you own the trucks and you employ the drivers.
Okay.
The trucks. So you're responsible for the employment of the drivers, the trucks, which includes the maintenance. But yeah, you park them at the distribution facility at that FedEx owns and operates. They load you, they route you, and yeah, your drivers just drive. They have a little GPS. They call it an ELD, tracker type deal that gives you metrics on the truck and where they're at and also where they should be going and all of that good stuff. So
Hmm.
it's fairly straightforward. But yeah, the headaches in that business are the truck maintenance and then the people, right? The drivers.
Yeah.
But there are strategies to overcome that. The other thing that I really like about FedEx, because of the recruitment business that I own,
Hmm.
is So there's two different types of routes that you can get. Not to make this and I know we're kind of up against it here, but
Sure.
there's two different types of routes that you can get. You can get what they call a long haul, which is kind of the 18-wheeler, cross country regional type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or what they call P&D, personal and delivery. And so those are the box trucks that you see, running around your neighborhoods and, office buildings and industrial parks and that sort of thing. But both of them, when I was learning about this, I got some consulting from somebody, and they described it, and they were spot on. They were like, the long haul business is really you're owning a recruiting business with a side of logistics, meaning that driver turnover is what you're going to and I was like, okay, great. I own a recruiting business, so that's easy. And then the P&D is more like hand-to-hand combat, but still with a flavor of recruiting. So recruiting is very important in that business as well, which serves me well. You disappeared into the wall again.
I'm here, man. I'm trying
to. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's all good. No, you're good.
So
yeah.
Cool. No, that makes sense. And we can, without going into a 30-minute seminar on FedEx, I definitely want to kind of hear some more about that and understand your decision-making process a little bit.
Totally.
But yeah, man. So what's kind of coming up for you for the end of this year? Like what are your main focuses right now?
Yeah. Well, two things, business related, finishing the year strong, in our recruiting business. We had our best month last month in September, and this month is, really tracking well, and just trying to continue that momentum through the end of the year. That's kind of priority number one. I've had some turnover in my recruiting business in terms of staff, which has been challenging to step through and try to backfill and, that sort of thing. The mentorship group that we have, Millionaire Recruiter Club, shameless plug, stabilizing, continuing to grow that group and, getting folks wins and all that is obviously a high priority. And then I'm currently on the personal side, been in the process of building a house here in Brazil for about a year and a half now. And so we've been significantly behind schedule. We were supposed to be in May, June timeframe, and here we are, October. Looks like we still have about 3 months to go. So, really kind of putting a bow on that and getting into that house is definitely at the top of the list for sure. How about you? What's going on with you for the end of the year?
Yeah, it's gonna be sick once you finish that house, by the way. Yeah, I mean, for me, man, I'm just grinding right now. Right now is just like, I'm earlier in my entrepreneur process. So like, I mean, things have gone well, we're going in our third year and everything. So just trying to finish the year strong. I think it's just like, with the way things, it depends on what your business is, right? So like, and I'll make this quick because I know we got 2 minutes left, but like, when you're owning like a retail shop or whatever, you have a certain set of challenges or whatever. When you do what we do, and a huge part of it is like email automation and all this other stuff, you're constantly figuring things out and things work and then they, don't work or whatever else. And so like, it's just, I think it's really, I'll be able to talk about this while we're having this podcast, is just kind of going through all that and figuring it out, really like, along the way and everything too. And just being able to have the right type of mindset, surround yourself with the right people and get the right information and just accept the fact that you're not, it's humbling, man. It's like I do jujitsu too. And it's like, I kind of relate the two all the time where it's just like, it humbles you every single day that you go in, because you're just like, I'm getting choked out by like certain things all the time. Cause you're like, when you've had a lot of success in different things in life, like growing up, I was, pretty good at sport. I was good at different things. And then when you like run into things that genuinely, truly challenge you, like it's kind of like, it makes you a lot stronger and it makes you become like a really good person. So like, it's been good. It's been good for me, like both personally and in my business. But yeah, I mean, things are going well. We're just going to finish the year off strong. And I think I see us really kind of like expanding next year and kind of, I have a good vision that I'll probably get into on the next podcast for where we're going with everything. And then I'll be looking into second businesses at some point too. And, all that kind of stuff. So
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, brother. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So, I mean, yeah, we'll be having maybe the first few podcasts. So kind of, we'll be going through and jumping through a lot of different things, topics that we want to touch. But I mean, who knows? Like it might even be the second or third podcast we start having guests on and things like that. Cause ultimately, just let you guys know that are listening, it's like we want to learn too. It's like we're here to kind of like ask questions that we would want to ask anyways, learn from people that we would want to learn anyways from. So and just give us the opportunity to do that and take people with us on that ride along the way.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
All right,
Enjoyed
man.
it.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Take care,
All right.
everybody.
Bye.